Lando Norris's 2025 F1 season got off to the perfect start. He converted pole position into the win, taking the lead of the Drivers' Championship and breaking Max Verstappen's record-breaking streak at the top of the individual championship. It was a strong performance from the McLaren driver, though who knows what might have happened if his team hadn't used team orders on Oscar Piastri midway through the race to stop the Aussie from making a move on Norris. Piastri later followed Norris through the gravel at Turn 3 before losing control when re-entering the track and getting stuck in the grass on the outside of Turn 4. That stopped it from being the perfect start to the season for McLaren, who now sit level with Mercedes on 27 points at the top of the Constructors' Championship. But going forward in the season, McLaren are the strong favourites to start with. The qualifying and race pace was very impressive, and if it weren't for the safety cars, they would have finished at least 30 seconds ahead of any of their competition. However, the FIA saw something they didn't like in Australia. From this weekend in China, the FIA is cracking down on the mini-DRS trick that McLaren made famous. And today, I'll check it out, so don't go anywhere. It was an exceptional start to the 2025 F1 season with unmissable on-track action, unbelievable wet weather driving, and unfortunate debut performances. For Lando Norris and McLaren, the race couldn't have gone any better. Norris struggled to get away as the lights went out in Melbourne, a mistake that last season would have led to Max Verstappen or Oscar Piastri taking the lead of the race before the end of lap 1. However, this is a new season, and Norris looked to have learned from the mistakes of last year. Some aggressive defending against those who started behind him compensated for his slow start, and he held his lead through the first lap. From that position, he drove a comfortable race to take the first win of the season, though Piastri being called off by the team helped him on his way. From lap 20 to lap 29, Piastri was the faster driver, lapping faster than his teammate for 10 straight circuits. During that 10-lap period, he reduced a 3.2-second deficit to just 6/10 before McLaren asked him to back off until the weather dried up, not wanting to risk the two teammates battling each other on a wet track wearing well-worn intermediates. It was a brutal call to make, and Piastri was not happy about it. He was heard on team radio saying he was faster and asking if they were free to race again a number of times. After the race, Oscar did brush it away, saying he understood that the extreme conditions on track were a good enough reason for the team to ask the two drivers to hold position, but did say that he expects that kind of call to go his way in the future if a similar situation arises. However, you can't take anything away from how Norris drove. He was clean and clinical and made a statement of intent for the season. Lando has been clear that a Drivers' Championship is the aim this season, and with the pace McLaren showed in Australia, it looks like the only person who might be able to stop him is his own teammate. However, that could all change at the next race this weekend in China. The FIA have released a statement confirming that a tougher new rear wing deflection test will be introduced from the Chinese Grand Prix onwards, a decision taken following the season opening race in Australia over the weekend. After teams were requested to use cameras to monitor the on-track deformations of their cars during the practice sessions in Melbourne, the FIA analysed this footage and concluded that sufficient grounds exist for a tougher test to be introduced on the upper rear wing at the next event in Shanghai, though it was added that all cars that raced in Australia were deemed to be legal under the rules for that race. What that means is that the FIA found evidence of cars' rear wings flexing, something that the FIA have explicitly said is illegal. But the cars passed the scrutineering tests, so by the FIA's own rules, were legal for the race. However, those tests are becoming tougher in China, which means some of the rear wings used in Australia may no longer be legal. A statement released by the governing body reads, "As has been previously communicated, between the end of the 2024 season and the start of the 2025 season, the FIA exercised the authority it is granted under Article 3.15.1 of the Technical Regulations to introduce either new or more challenging load deflection tests for the front wing, the upper rear wing, and the beam wing. In addition, the FIA requested to the teams to use cameras in free practice sessions to monitor the on-track deformations exhibited by the cars during the Australian Grand Prix. Having analysed footage from the rear wing deformations combined to the static deflections measured inside the FIA garage in Melbourne, the FIA has concluded that sufficient grounds exist for a tougher test to be introduced from the forthcoming Chinese Grand Prix on the upper rear wing." The statement goes on to say that the tests at the Australian Grand Prix allowed the gap between the rear wing main plane and the DRS flap to vary by no more than 2 mm, when placed under a 75 kilogram load, which all the cars passed. However, from the Chinese Grand Prix in 5 days' time, the teams will only be allowed a variance in the gap between the two rear wing elements of 0.75 mm when placed under load, reducing to 0.5 mm from round 3 in Japan. They end the statement by reaffirming that all the cars raced in Australia passed the old tests, but the fact this change has been made implies that some cars were using the mini-DRS trick that McLaren exhibited at last season's Azerbaijan Grand Prix. For those who don't remember, in Baku last year, the McLaren rear wing was seen to be flexing on the straights, mimicking what happens when a car uses its DRS. The gap between the two rear wing planes opened up, reducing the drag the wing created and therefore increasing the top speed of the car. Now, the FIA have not said which team or teams were seen to be using the trick in Melbourne, but this response clearly shows that someone was. Before I talk about what the result of this could be and how the teams will respond to the incredibly short notice change, if you're enjoying the video and want to catch all the news and analysis from the upcoming F1 season, then make sure to give this video a like and subscribe to F1 Reverse. Thanks a lot. So there are a couple of surprising things about this change. The first is just how quickly this has come into place. The FIA have said that they informed the teams of the change to the deflection test on Monday morning, but that is still incredibly short notice. Producing F1 parts is a process that takes months, not days. For the teams running rear wings that the FIA think will fail the new test, they'll have to do a patch job to make their wings compliant while they wait for their factories to design and produce replacements. Those patch jobs will probably be well hidden, so we might never know exactly who the FIA are targeting with this change. In Australia, the DRS effect of the top teams showed a percentage delta between closed flap and open flap that was pretty consistent and aligned with the expected speed increase from DRS. It was plus 24 km an hour for Mercedes, plus 23 for McLaren and Red Bull, and plus 22 for Ferrari, with a gain of roughly 8% compared to the maximum speed for each team. If a team were making use of a flexible rear wing to gain some of the advantage of DRS without having the DRS flap open, the difference in top speed between DRS being open and closed would be smaller, meaning Ferrari are more likely to be getting an advantage than Mercedes based off the top speeds from Melbourne. But the variance in speed difference is so small that we can't take anything concrete from this data. However, there is some evidence to help identify teams that may be forced to make changes for this week. During pre-season testing, Red Bull in particular was unhappy about the behavior of the rear wings on other cars, as it suspected some wings were flexing too much and manipulation of the slot gap was taking place, so we can probably assume they aren't making use of the mini-DRS trick. It seems silly to call yourself out on your own rule breaking. The rear wing of the Mercedes was captured flexing back on rearward-facing cameras in pre-season testing. Pierre Vache also specifically called out two teams for using the mini-DRS trick. "It is still going on," he said. "I think Ferrari and McLaren are doing the mini-DRS stuff still." The FIA have been clear, and the rules have been changed to say that any flexing in the rear wing is unacceptable. Either the DRS flap is open or closed. It cannot be in any other position, meaning it cannot flex to increase the gap between the rear wing elements. However, F1 rules state for a car to be legal to race, it must pass scrutineering tests. If it passes scrutineering, even if a car's rear wing looks to be flexing, then it is considered legal. That is why this rule change has come in. The FIA are trying to make the scrutineering tests for the rear wing so strict that there is no chance that a team can have a rear wing that passes scrutineering but still flexes during the race. Obviously, everyone will be expecting McLaren to be the team most impacted by this, as they look to have the fastest car at the moment and have a history of using this trick, but we'll have to wait until the Chinese Grand Prix to see the real effect. Are you happy to see the FIA cracking down on teams in such an aggressive manner? And who do you think will be most affected? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and if you haven't already, make sure to check out our latest documentary on the crashes that changed F1 forever. I promise it's worth your time. Until next time, drive safe and bye for now.